Well, hello, and thank you for joining us here at Ask the Chimney Sweep. My name's Clay, and on today's show, we have a good friend of mine named Bill Hussell from up in the Wisconsin area, and he's got a lot of wisdom. He's had multiple different operations. I think you're going to like this, because he comes off with some really good hints and ideas. I call it that gray hair wisdom. So join me today on Ask the Chimney Sweep with my buddy, Bill Hussell.
An insert normally weighs about 300 or 400 pounds. The EX90 weighs 700 pounds.
That's a lot of weight. Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Ask the Chimney Sweep, a podcast devoted to helping you safely use your fireplace or heating system. I'm your host, Clay Lamb, and my friends, it really doesn't matter if you're brand new to having a fireplace, because there's something always changing when it comes to heating your home with wood, gas, or electric. So join me as we gather in my virtual fireplace. We'll be chatting about hints and tips and how we can make some of those important chimney and fireplace repairs, possibly save some energy, and how we can cut back on those heating bills. Let me introduce my friend here. This is Mr. Bill Hussell from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Bill and I have known each other probably for about 15 or 20 years now.
Yeah.
We're both in the chimney and fireplace industry. He runs two very successful operations, and he just sold one of them in Milwaukee, and the other one's in Madison. Am I correct?
That's correct.
You're still chipper as can be to go make money and figure out how to grow the business. You've always had an interesting character. You've always been a big salesperson, but I think it has a lot to do with the way you treat customers. You emphasize and treat them right, treat them fair. There's a value in what you offer your customers. What should a homeowner look for?
I think a lot of homeowners really don't know what they're really buying. They are trusting, in almost all cases, that the contractor knows what the heck he's doing, because the homeowner is not educated enough in a lot of these home improvement projects. So he's signing a contract, and he's basically saying, I'm giving you full support that I'm assuming here you're going to do this job right. It's going to be done on time. It's going to be done to building codes. It's going to be safe when I get done with it, because I do not know enough about this to challenge and determine whether or not you know what the heck you're doing. So trust is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of sales company new guys get on there and they're just trying to sell, have all the tricks of the trade, and it's really about building a relationship.
Right. I mean, they do need to trust you and trust that you're going to do a good job, because how many homeowners, Clay, have you ever seen get up on the roof and look at your work with a microscope?
Are scared to be up that rooftop?
They don't do it. It's like, I'm looking at this chimney 40 feet away. They don't know the internal elements of what you did on their roof, and they don't know the external elements. So they're assuming you did the right job for them.
Well, let's tell our guest out there, you are actually from Cincinnati. You grew up in Peach Grove, which is just outside in the northwest district of Cincinnati.
Near Groesbeck.
A farm boy at heart, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you raise on your farm?
When I was born and young, it was a fruit farm, mostly fruit trees and things like that.
All right. Tell us what you did after you got tired of being a farm boy. What'd you do?
Went to Ohio State, got my degree in mechanical engineering.
So you're a mechanical engineer by trade.
Yeah. And then moved on to Milwaukee.
I sold material handling equipment for years. It was always interesting to me how many mechanical engineers were farm boys. And I guess it was because you couldn't call the tow truck. You had to figure out how to get the tractor out of there.
Farmers are a do-it-yourself breed.
That's right. That's right.
Almost by design, they can't really afford to have experts come in and do this, that, and the other thing. They have to do most of these things themselves.
Well, let me ask you this. How did you get in the chimney business?
Here was my theory. I believed that the fireplace and chimney business was a safety-related element for the homeowner.
Interesting.
And that he felt, the homeowner that is, that he needed a true professional and somebody who was truly an expert, because it's a wood-burning fireplace or it's a gas fireplace, and you don't want to just call anybody who may know how to fix these things.
You have a fire in your house.
You have a fire in your house. Now, if you're putting in windows, or if you're putting on siding, or if you're putting on a roof, or if you're pouring a sidewalk and somebody screws it up, your family is not at risk. The project can be repaired, but they don't have to worry about waking up in the morning.
That's really not true about chimneys, is it?
But chimneys and fireplaces are way more important to the homeowner, mainly because of the safety element.
Well, I hope you're hearing that, homeowners. If you're thinking about having a fireplace serviced, repaired, replaced, Bill's is telling us that it's important to get something that's been tested, trusted, and maybe some experience and went through that learning curve of knowing how to make your home safe with a fireplace. Bill, I want to step into something. Now, you've been in Milwaukee for how many years in the fireplace business?
35 years.
35 years. Okay. And now you do what kind of work up there?
We do really anything that has to do with a fireplace or chimney. Anywhere from cleaning, we service both wood burning and gas fireplaces. We do all the repairs. We only use employees. We've never used subcontractors, by the way.
Why don't you use subcontractors?
It's mainly an element of priority. And when you have jobs that are scheduled and you've promised customers that you're going to be there in 3 weeks, and if you are using a subcontractor and he gets busy with his own work or with other people's work, and he's supposed to show up for you to do your work in 3 weeks, he might just tell you, look, I got other jobs to do. And
I agree with you.
I'll get there when I can get there.
I agree with you.
So you really can't rely on them. And the other thing is, they all seem to have their own level of standards as far as cleanup, relationships with customers, the way they do things. And a lot of them, those elements are not very good, but it's theirs. And for you to try to change them to do it the right way for your jobs, it's not going to happen.
They're going to do it their way, aren't they? That's why they're subcontractors.
Yeah. So I think you really have to hire people. You have to really train them and educate them as to what your standards are. And you're going to be able to service your customers the right way.
It's interesting you say that because a lot of times homeowners don't recognize it. They may have a subcontractor on a job. So it's important as you're writing your contract or reading your contract, my friends out there, that you check to see, are these subcontractors or employees? And that has a lot to do with the liability exposure to you as a homeowner also. Because if that subcontractor gets hurt and he doesn't have proper liability insurance, I guarantee there's going to be an ambulance chasing attorney knocking at your door.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to put fear in you. We're trying to put wisdom in how you as a homeowner should act and what you should do. Do your due diligence and actually find out, are you hiring a company with employees or subcontractors?
Correct.
Bill, let's jump into this. I want to talk about, you sell a lot of wood stoves, don't you?
We do.
You're carrying what brand? Regency?
Yes.
We carry Regency here. And just so our homeowners know out there, Regency is pretty much a national brand. It's out of Canada, but they have distributors from many chimney contractors throughout the United States. So I don't care where you're hearing us, you probably got a contractor in your city that provides one of the nicest pieces of equipment, being the Regency fireplace line and chimney and stoves line. Let's discuss that homeowner that we look at when we're looking for a fireplace conversion into a wood stove insert or a hearth stove. What do you do? What are you going to do and say to the customer?
Well, I think the biggest reason that people would consider going to a Regency hearth stove or insert is strictly from an efficiency standpoint. All open wood-burning fireplaces essentially have a 0% efficiency rating. In
other words, that's sucking that fireplace smoke right up the chimney, a lot of cold air from the other rooms of the house right up the chimney?
Exactly. You know, this is an interesting concept. About 10 years ago, when customers would come to our fireplace store, we would have to try and explain that concept of how they're losing all this energy from their house through these open fireplaces, and that really their fireplace was 0% efficient. It's not that way anymore today. Most homeowners come into your store and they tell you how inefficient their fireplace is.
They know it, don't they?
They know it, and they've learned that over the last 10 years. So this educational process that literally every open, regular wood-burning fireplace that has open access to the home for combustion air knows that that fireplace is essentially 0% efficient. Now, if you only use your fireplace once or twice a year, what difference does it make? Because you're not really losing energy to speak of. But more and more people now when they have guests over, or when they have family over, or when they want to just sit down amongst themselves with their family, they've got their fireplace going. So they realize that if they're going to use their fireplace a lot, it needs to be efficient. So the only way you're going to have an efficient wood-burning device is to make it virtually airtight. In other words, it has to have a glass door that's gasketed that does not draw much air from the house. And that's what you end up with, is a wood-burning insert, or you end up with a wood-burning fireplace, or you end up with a wood-burning stove. One of those three appliances.
Well, let me ask you, let's clarify so homeowners understand. When we talk about an insert, we're talking about a 300 or 400 pound stove that's going to be inserted into the fireplace, not a prefab builder's box that you see in a lot of apartments or hotels and things like that. We're talking about a masonry fireplaces in most cases, and then you're actually putting a 300 pound stove in there and putting some type of a liner, correct?
Right. I think the biggest feature difference is it's airtight. It does not draw hardly any air from your living space. The actual air inlet opening on the Regency wood-burning fireplaces is only as big as your little finger.
Really?
That is the only amount of air that it uses from the home.
That's a good story.
Now you compare that to a fireplace that's 36 inches wide and 28 inches high. It's sucking a lot of air out of your house with that large of an opening compared to this opening for inlet air that's only as big as your little finger.
Let's talk about a couple models here. Let's talk about maybe the i2400, the i2600, and maybe other ones that you want to talk about. Let's start off with the i2400. It's a very popular stove for us here.
That's the stove, the insert that's been around with Regency for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of been their workhorse for the last, I think, 25 or 30 years.
Is that right?
In fact, I had a customer come into our store once. He had this 2400 for 24 years and had used it from November until April every year, burned it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, used it for a main heat source of his house, and said he needed it cleaned. So we went out and cleaned it. He came back a few weeks later and he said, "Bill, there's nothing wrong with this Regency 2400. It works great. It's just as good as it worked."
After 24 years?
24 years of using it round the clock through 5-6 months a year.
And we're talking about Milwaukee.
And we're
climate.
talking about Milwaukee. So he felt he wanted a new one, a new 2400. He knew the efficiencies were going to be greater because it's a newer design.
When you say efficiency, you're talking about burn.
Yes.
Better burn ratings.
Well, in other words, what percent of BTUs are you getting into your house compared to what's going up the chimney?
Okay.
That's essentially the burn efficiency.
Okay.
And again, it's zero if you have an open fireplace. With today's wood-burning units, it's around 75 to 85%. It's phenomenally good.
Folks, that's a lot of burn. That's a lot of burn. And let's talk about how they're getting that. How do they get that better burn, Bill?
Actually, the heat goes through several different directional changes. It winds its way around inside the fireplace. And so all of the heat exchangers are picking up some of this heat as that heat is being moved around inside the firebox. Then, instead of having just a hole in top of where the burning takes place, the heat actually has to move about 90% forward towards the glass door.
That's for more than one purpose, isn't it?
Right. And then it goes up, and then it goes backwards, again 90% of the way, before it actually exits into the chimney.
So our homeowners understand this is intentionally designed to baffle, turn, and twist to clean the glass and also to burn those secondary particulates in the smoke. In other words, what I'm saying is that you're not having that dark old bellowing smoke coming out the top of the chimney we used to see in the 80s. You're seeing just kind of a mist come up there, a little bit less.
You're also not seeing a creosote buildup.
Good
If
point.
you have a airtight wood stove that's 20 years old as compared to a brand new Regency wood stove, it's night and day.
Big difference.
There really isn't any black combustible creosote that's even built up anymore.
Because it's burning all the soot and
Yes.
tar gases inside there.
Inside, and actually you're getting heat from that to bring into your house.
Talk about the little rods at the top of the baffle holes in it, Bill.
That, again, is part of the heat exchanger process. Your mention, Clay, this is a huge feature, that this air wash system that they have that brings the heat down across the glass. 5-6 years ago, wood-burning devices, you could never see the fire inside the firebox because the glass was just sooted up.
So bad.
But now, the way the air wash system works is that it brings that heat, a very high level of heat, down across the glass, literally burns off the soot and the creosote that otherwise would form on the glass.
All right, let's talk about that customer says, well, mine still soots up. What are they doing wrong, Bill?
They're not burning it hot enough in 99% of the cases.
They're choking it down too much.
Yeah, they're chugging it down, or they're afraid of it. They just don't want to put enough wood in it to get it up to a high temperature. I had a customer once that bought a Regency insert, and he had actually burned wood for a good part of his life and thought he knew how to burn wood. So 2-3 weeks after we installed the unit, he calls me up and he said, Bill, I am very disappointed. He said, this glass is just sooted up and creosoted up like crazy. He said, what should we do? And I said, well, I need to come over and I need to show you a couple things.
Wait a minute, Bill. That's called customer service, isn't it?
That's customer service. So I went over, actually brought my own wood with me.
Really?
Because that could be another element. If you got wood that's got too much moisture in it, it will not burn hot enough. And you will not get enough heat in that insert to actually keep the glass clean. So I took wood over that I knew was of the right moisture content.
What would that be about, Bill?
No more than 15%.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're going to burn a lot of wood, you need to invest $40 into a firewood moisture meter.
Yes, that's a great idea.
It has 2 little pins in it. You stick these 2 little needles in the end of any piece of firewood, and instantaneously you will find out what the moisture content is.
But Bill, it's all gray. It must be seasoned.
A lot of wood looks the same.
Yeah.
But if it's got 20-25% moisture in it, it's going to be a problem to burn.
You're going to hear the sizzling, cracking, and moisture burning off of it.
Yeah, if you ever get that sizzling or any bubbling on the end of your firewood logs, you do not want to be burning that wood. That wood would have about 25% moisture content in it.
Let's move into the i2600, and let's talk about why a customer might want to pick an i2600 over the i2400.
Well, these are the Cadillacs. These are the highest tech, brand new. We love Regency. There isn't a wood-burning device out there made by anybody that's as good.
Is that right?
It's got a catalytic burner on it, which actually reduces the particulate emission down to almost nothing. The efficiency is 85%.
That's powerful.
There's nothing above 78 or 80% on the market.
Is that right?
So if you're burning a lot of wood, this is the Cadillac to burn wood in.
In other words, if you're tired of feeding that monster, buy a Regency stove, an i2600, and you'll have a lot less trips out to the wood pile and a lot more heat out of it.
There's a difference between a wood-burning insert and a wood-burning fireplace. A wood-burning insert is what you explained earlier, Clay. Basically a box, a self-contained box, that literally slides into an existing fireplace, whether it's a prefab fireplace or if it's an old-fashioned masonry fireplace. They're a great heat source. They produce as much heat as any wood-burning device that you can find. There's one slight drawback, and that is the viewing area is relatively small.
You're saying the glass window.
The glass window.
Okay.
Now, there are some models on the market, and I'm including Regency in this, where you can also buy a detachable screen. So you can open the door, you can put the screen in, you can hear that more of the popping and crackling noise when you're sitting in front of the fireplace. However, not all models have that screen as an option. They just haven't been tested by underwriter laboratories to burn with the screen in place. So as a result, if you buy a model where that screen hasn't been tested, you're not going to have that as an option. The 2400 you can buy the screen for. The 2600 you cannot buy the screen for.
Okay.
I think that's an important feature if people now and then want to sit in front of the fireplace and hear that popping and crackling noise.
The i2400 would you recommend?
Yes.
Okay.
And that will give you a bigger viewing area because you don't have the frame of the door to look through.
Okay.
So viewing area, if it's important to you, which it is to almost everybody, if you can put the screen in, that does allow you a bigger burning area when the screen is in place. Now, there's another very unique way to give you a much larger viewing area other than putting in a wood-burning insert.
That would be what?
Put in a wood-burning fireplace.
All right.
Now, a wood-burning fireplace typically is not intended to be put into any type of an existing fireplace that's already there.
It's kind of like somebody's building a house.
That's the normal way.
Okay.
But here's another unique way. You have a brick and mortar fireplace that is been built, let's say, before 1985. Typically, that's when those fireplaces were built. I think if most companies came to that house and the homeowner said, I want to put a wood-burning device in that fireplace, they would only give the option of putting an insert. Well, if you go with the insert, you're going to have a much reduced burning view than what you used to have with the old fireplace. If you're only interested in heat, it doesn't make any difference. But if you entertain a lot, if you have a very large great room, and you want to have a very large viewing area of that fire, here is another way to solve the problem. You need a company that has some good masons working for them.
That's right. Are there any in Milwaukee?
They're in Milwaukee.
In Madison?
And in Madison. But you can literally, and we've done this probably 20 or 30 times, you can carve out enough bricks, make that opening large enough in your old fireplace to actually put in a wood-burning fireplace.
What Regency product are you speaking of?
That is the most popular one by far is called an Excalibur 90. It's got double door cast iron doors for it. Very, very large viewing area compared to an insert. And as you mentioned earlier, Clay, an insert normally weighs about 300 or 400 pounds. The EX90 weighs 700 pounds.
That's a lot of weight.
You need a big opening to slide this fireplace in. Mm-hmm. So you actually have to dismantle part of your fireplace.
Existing smoke chamber and the damper, pull that all out.
Yes, all of that, plus some.
And that's why you're referencing only do this with somebody who has some skilled masons on staff.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to tear it apart, but it's a lot more difficult to put it back together.
There aren't many companies that would even offer this,
right,
unless they really do have good masons working for them.
Let's talk about the venting for the i2400 to i2600 in this Excalibur. Talk about it from let's i2400 and bring us up 26 to Excalibur.
All inserts use a 6-inch stainless steel liner.
And that liner has to be the same size as the opening on the top or back of the stove.
Yes. It also needs to be insulated.
When you say insulate, what are you talking about?
A couple ways of insulating it. One is a more traditional way of insulating, which is a poured chimney mix. The trade name that's most commonly used is called Thermix.
Thermix,
yeah. Thermix is the most common trade name, although now there's 4 or 5 other competitors. But it's made to pour in around the liner.
What is in Thermix? What makes it the insulation properties?
It actually has vermiculite is the main element, and it has some Portland cement in it, so you mix it with water. And it doesn't get hard like concrete. It basically gets more like styrofoam.
Okay.
Once it sets up.
All right, we've insulated the i2400. We've insulated the i2600. Now the Excalibur, what about that, Bill?
The Excalibur uses an air-cooled rigid chimney.
When you're saying air-cooled, you're talking about 2 walls?
Yes.
There's air going thermocycling through there, correct?
Right. You have a stainless steel inner liner and a galvanized or or you can get it either way, galvanized outside liner or stainless steel outside shell.
So it's designed to cool off that pipe or keep the air moving up and down the pipe to keep it insulated from the walls and other materials around inside your construction.
A wood-burning fireplace can be used, for instance, in a remodeling job or a new home. But, as I was saying earlier, kind of a new, unique way of using it is actually install it in an old, existing masonry fireplace. Or if you have what's referred to as a prefab metal fireplace, that is typically a fireplace in a home built after 1985, where it's just an open fireplace. That fireplace can be removed either from the inside of the house or by removing the vinyl siding on the outside of the house and taking the old prefab fireplace out and actually sliding in one of these high-efficiency 700-pound Excalibur 90 Regencies.
So you really have to make sure there's a good foundation to put that on?
You do, or it can be beefed up too.
Okay.
We can add supports. It happens a lot.
Well, it's interesting because you always go on these jobs and you had the handyman there. They put something and think, well, why didn't he strengthen that up? Why did he put so close to the combustibles inside there? Because again, folks, we're talking about fire in your house, and that's what we have to be careful of. Let's talk about the combustibles inside a chimney chase that you look for. So sign us off with a little bit about the construction issues that you might find inside of a chimney.
You can start with the inside of the flue that can have either crack flues or mortar missing between flues. And a chimney system really needs to be airtight, watertight from leakage of all sorts. With many of the fireplaces, not the newer Regency units, but a lot of open fireplaces and older wood-burning fireplaces produce a lot of what's called third-degree creosote. And that creosote is actually literally a liquid that runs down the inside of the chimney wall before it solidifies. And if you have cracks or openings between the flue tiles, that creosote will run outside the inside of the flue tiles and build up into areas where you don't want the creosote to be building up.
And it's a fuel and it can catch fire.
It's very combustible. It can't be cleaned anymore because it's not accessible to the inside of the flue. And it builds up on the outside where nobody knows about it, sight unseen, until it gets hot enough where it becomes a very, very, almost a disaster for that particular chimney.
Folks, if you've had a chimney fire, if you've had a serviceman come out to your home and tell you you've had a chimney fire and there's damage in there, and he just wants to line it with the clay tiles and put it back the way it was, I think it's a decision you have to make for your household that you might want to upgrade or at least cross over, because a lot of times upgrading to a good wood stove of some type is about the same value of tearing that chimney down and relining it, putting new flow tiles in it, and it turns out a much better value for you and your home, and also for the resale value of your home. Bill, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I think we've heard from the engineer side of you, my friend. Great knowledge, great wisdom, well explained. My friends, if you have any questions, you're welcome to join us on Ask the Chimney Sweep on the blog post. And thanks for stopping by here on the podcast. And also look for us on the YouTube station, because I've been lately taking a lot of my podcasts and moving them into YouTube with a slideshow. And I think that will help you a lot to see some of these units and understand a few more things. Folks, thanks you so much. And Bill, thanks for stopping by.
You're quite welcome.
I knew that Bill Hussell would bring the goods. He's a smart man. He has a lot of information. He's done a lot of businesses and started and sold and rebuilt them over and over. Does a great job with that. But stay tuned next week. I have a good friend of mine named Alan Rush. Probably one of the better teachers in our industry. Has a lot of information, but his delivery on knowledge is second to none. Thanks for joining us here on Ask the Chimney Sweep, and we'll see you next week.